On the knife edge of the Anvil in Afghanistan's Ghor province, the wind didn't just blow, it twisted, carving invisible rivers through the air. Elena Frost Whitfield, 28, white, a strikingly composed sniper with balanced athletic build and the calm, decisive poise of a soldier who has rehearsed catastrophe 1,000 times, lay prone. Her cheek rested against the cold steel of a Barrett M107. Through her scope, the bowl below writhed dust, coiling with the acrid sting of smoke drifting from fob gray rock miles away. Her pulse ran slow, too slow for the chaos, like her body had already decided the storm would bend to her. In the shadowed amphitheater of the Anvil, the SEAL team wavered. Rifles dipped, hands loosened, as if some unseen current siphoned off their will. Low, strange hums leaked from enemy positions, sounds that crept beneath thought, whispering surrender, sanding away resolve. Commander Mark Rudd's voice cracked in her ear, tight with disbelief. "No one can make that shot in this wind, Whitfield. It's suicide." Frost's pale eyes narrowed, unyielding her mind a locked citadel against doubt. The gale sang a death chorus, sharpening her focus. She exhaled, steady as stone. "That's physics, sir. Not fate." Her finger skimmed the trigger. The world contracted to a single burning point in her crosshairs. Her heartbeat faded to a whisper, sinking with the desert's cruel pulse, each beat a ledger line of the lives strung on this moment. The Anvil held its breath. Then the trigger clicked, a metallic snap through the void, unleashing what no one expected. 24 hours earlier, the thump of helicopter blades drowned the desert's howl as Elena Whitfield stepped onto the cracked tarmac of fob gray rock. Staff Sergeant 28 hair pulled into a tight bun that disguised sleepless nights. She clutched a clipboard, a logistics officer's prop, as unremarkable as the pressed uniform that concealed older scars. Her eyes scanned the Afghan horizon mountains, looming like broken promises, their peaks piercing a sky that offered no mercy. Elena had grown up in Boston's shadows, where rent was a prayer and hope a scarce currency. Her mother, a physics PhD, turned dinner tables into classrooms, scribbling ballistic equations on napkins, trajectories, wind drift, Coriolis curves that bent bullets like a cruel hand, teaching Elena that the world could be measured, predicted, mastered. But it was her grandmother, May Whitfield, who broke World War II's barriers, serving in the Women's Army Corps as a marksmanship instructor, teaching Elena that courage is discipline under pressure, who taught Elena to shoot. May's old letter folded in her pocket like a talisman held words sharper than bullets. Shoot not for fame, but to let others live. Her badge, worn and heavy with the weight of unspoken battles, hung close to Elena's heart, a reminder of doubts she'd faced about daring to aim high in a soldier's world, where every glance could question her place. Before leaving, Elena had video called her mother from a quiet corner of the base. Just logistics observation. Ma, she'd lied her smile tight and forced hiding the sniper mission beneath her cover, the classified orders that pulled her into shadows deeper than Boston's alleys. The truth was buried like the scar on her wrist from a mission gone wrong, a reminder that one miscalculation could cost everything. As the helicopter's dust settled swirling around her boots like ghosts of past deployments, Elena stepped forward, clipboard in hand, her gaze steady but shadowed by the weight of what lay ahead. She wasn't here to observe supplies. She was here to change the odds, to prove that equations and instinct could rewrite destiny. But no one at Grayson could know, not yet. Have you ever hidden your true strength to fit in? Share your thoughts in the comments. It might inspire someone watching. The Tactical Operations Center at FOB Grayson buzzed with quiet tension, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and diesel that clung to everything like a second skin. Maps plastered the walls, red X's marking where the Anvil, A death trap of a valley in Gore Province had swallowed 3 SEAL teams, whole their losses, a grim tally of the desert's unforgiving hunger. Commander Mark Rudd, mid-40s, stood at the front, his weathered face set like stone, carved by years of command, eyes scanning his men with the weight of too many missions lost to the sands. His voice was gravel no nonsense, cutting through the room like a knife. 2 operators, Martinez and Chen, are trapped in the Anvil. JSOC says recon only. No engagement. We watch, we report. We don't play hero unless ordered. His team's 6 operators, plus young Petty Officer Tyler Briggs, nodded their gear clinking softly, like a chorus of readiness mixed with unease. Briggs, lean and sharp-tongued, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his smirk barely hidden under a facade of discipline. At 25, he wore his skepticism like a badge of honor, especially when it came to outsiders, especially women who didn't fit the mold of battle-hardened operators. Across the room, Elena Whitfield stood quietly, clipboard clutched tight, her face unreadable amid the sea of tactical vests and rifles. Rudd barely glanced her way. And we've got a logistics observer. Orders from above. His tone dripped with irritation, like babysitting was beneath him, a distraction from the real fight. Briggs snorted his laugh, a bark that echoed off the prefab walls. What's she logging, Sir? Sand counts, or how many MREs we burned through. A few chuckles rippled through the team, low and mocking, but Elena didn't flinch, her composure a wall they couldn't breach. Instead, she stepped forward, her voice calm, measured, slicing through the noise like a well-aimed shot. Prevailing winds in the Anvil direction and speed terrain elevation markers that could shift a trajectory. The room stilled the air, thickening with surprise. Rudd blinked, caught off guard, his rigid posture faltering for a moment. Briggs scoffed louder, leaning forward with a grin. What are you calculating, supply shopping? Or planning a picnic in the kill zone? Elena's eyes flicked to the map, tracing the Anvil's jagged contours, with a precision that hinted at depths, unseen, her fingers tightening on the clipboard, as if it held secrets far beyond logistics. She said nothing, but the faintest curve of her lips hinted at something unspoken, something sharp, like the edge of a blade waiting to be drawn. The team geared up. Rifles checked with mechanical efficiency, radios tested with curt calls, oblivious to the weight in her rucksack that promised more than observation. The Anvil was waiting, and Elena was already measuring its pulse, the equations in her mind aligning like stars in a storm. The convoy rolled out at dawn, tires grinding over the Afghan desert's unforgiving stone, kicking up clouds of dust that choked the air like forgotten regrets. Elena Whitfield sat in the Humvee's passenger seat, her logistics rucksack heavy at her feet, its hidden Barrett M107 sniper rifle a secret she carried like a second heartbeat, pulsing with the promise of precision. Outside, the Gore landscape bared its teeth, jagged mountains like broken fangs, their shadows clawing at the earth, casting long, menacing silhouettes under a sun that burned without mercy. The wind whipped through, carrying the smell of death dust, mingled with gunpowder and something older, sharper. Like the Anvil itself was exhaling its kills, a reminder that this land devoured the unwary. Commander Rudd's voice crackled over the radio, clipped and professional, an anchor in the growing unease. Maintain formation. Eyes on the ridge, anything moves, call it. Briggs, riding shotgun in the lead vehicle, muttered under his breath, his sarcasm a shield against the tension. Hope our babysitter packed enough pencils for all this observation. His jab hung in the air, a test of her resolve, but Elena's gaze stayed fixed on the horizon, tracking a lone hawk spiraling against the blood-orange sky, its freedom a stark contrast to the trap awaiting them. Her fingers grazed the rucksack, Steady, silent, her mind already mapping the winds that could bend fate. As the convoy neared the Anvil's overlook, the air grew thicker, the mountains closing in like sentinels guarding secrets. A drone operator's voice cut through the radio static, urgent and clipped. Contact enemy positions high ground. 200 yards out looks fortified. The team tensed hands, tightening on weapons, the Humvee vibrating with anticipation. But then the feed went black, a sudden void that sucked the breath from the cabin. Jammer, the operator, cursed, his voice rising in frustration. They've got tech military-grade blocking everything. This isn't some ragtag group. They're prepared. Rudd's jaw tightened, his eyes flicking to Elena in the rearview mirror, a flicker of suspicion mixing with command. She stared into the dust-choked valley, her face unreadable, but her mind racing equations whirling like the hawk above. Something was waiting down there, and it wasn't just the enemy. It was a test of who she truly was. The Anvil loomed its silence a challenge, and Elena felt the weight of hidden strengths stirring within her. As the convoy halted at the ridge's edge, the drone operator hunched over his screen fingers, flying across the controls in a frantic bid to reclaim the feed. Feed's back partial. Look at this. It's bigger than we thought. The grainy footage flickered to life, revealing high in the Anvil's craggy walls, 3 figures huddled in a concealed cave, their movements deliberate and commanding. One barked orders the intelligence chief his radio gear, a giveaway, coordinating the shadows that had plagued American forces for months. Beside him, the strategist pored over maps, plotting ambushes, with a cold precision that had already cost too many lives. The third, the logistics head, oversaw crates of munitions, the backbone of their splinter group ensuring the flow of death never stopped. 200 yards distant, but clear enough to see the threat that could end the nightmare or prolong it. Rudd leaned in his breath, catching sharply the lines on his face, deepening with recognition. That's them, the triad running this sector. Take them out and their network crumbles like sand. No more IEDs lining the roads, no more traps, swallowing our teams whole. The team murmured agreement, eyes lighting with the hunt's fire, a spark of hope in the oppressive heat. Briggs gripped his rifle tighter, his sarcasm giving way to grit. Jackpot, sir. We go in hot end this today. But Elena's gaze locked on the scope-like feed her mind, whirring faster than the drone's rotors. Winds gusted below, twisting dust devils across the valley floor in chaotic dances. Coriolis effect. Earth's spin-bending bullets over distance, amplified here by the thin air and swirling thermals that could turn a perfect shot into a fatal miss. She traced the math in her head. Velocity drop over 200 yards, spindrift curve, pulling the bullet off course, a shot defying odds that only someone who lived by equations could dare. The numbers aligned, but so did the risks. Rudd shook his head, voice flat and final, cutting through the excitement like a blade. Impossible shot. Too far winds like a tornado whipping through hell. Where recon only observe and pull back, no heroics. Doubt rippled through the team eyes, flicking to Elena, the logistics girl who'd asked about winds earlier, her quiet intensity now a puzzle. She stayed silent, calculations etching deeper lines on her face. But Briggs caught her intensity, his brow furrowing. What do you think you could thread that needle from here? Elena met his gaze, her silence a veil hiding storms within. The drone feed stuttered again, hinting at more hidden threats lurking in the shadows. The Anvil was not just a valley, it was a predator, and they were walking into its maw. The drone's feed sharpened, zooming into the cave's dim glow, with a clarity that sent chills down spines. Amid the triad's shadows, a figure in white caught Elena's eye, a woman slender and poised under duress, her robes stained with dust, tending to a crate, like a reluctant caretaker in a den of wolves. "Who's that?" Briggs muttered, leaning closer, his voice laced with curiosity and dismissal. "Nurse medic for those bastards patching up their killers." Rudd's brow furrowed his focus. Narrowing. Irrelevant. "Focus on the targets. We're not here for side stories." But Elena's instincts flared. Something about the woman's posture, tense eyes darting with calculated fear, didn't fit the role of a willing accomplice. She pulled out her secure tablet, fingers tapping a quick query to intel channels, her movements swift and discreet, amid the team's grumbling. The response pinged back almost instantly. Dr. Layla Rahimi, Afghan, National Secret U.S. Informant. Embedded deep in enemy lines, feeding whispers on Taliban movements. For months, her intel saving countless patrols from ambushes. Captured days ago. Now bait dangled to lure rescue teams into the Anvil's jaws, a human trap designed to multiply the body count. Elena's stomach twisted, the revelation hitting like a gust from the valley below. Layla wasn't aiding the enemy. She was their prisoner, forced into visibility, a human shield in white robes that screamed vulnerability. Confirming, Elena said, her voice low but firm, cutting through the room like a suppressed shot. "She's one of ours. Layla, our asset. They're using her as bait to draw us in." The team froze, the air thickening with shock. Rudd cursed under his breath, his composure cracking. Damn it. Complicates everything, turns a clean op into a moral minefield. Briggs whistled, his sarcasm fading. "So we can't just glass the place. She's right in the crossfire, blocking the shots, like she's part of their defense." Through the feed, Layla shifted her position, blocking the line to the intelligence chief, perfectly placed, whether by chance or cruel design. Elena's mind raced the shot she'd calculated precise, as her mother's equations on those napkin sketches now carried double death. Save the SEALs by dismantling the triad, or risk. Layla's life, the woman whose intel had saved countless others, a silent hero in her own right. Moral coils tightened like the winds outside, pulling at her resolve. Rudd's eyes met hers, the weight of command shared for a moment. Options. Elena gripped her rucksack, silence heavy as the badge in her pocket. The Anvil whispered its challenge, daring them to choose. Elena's fingers brushed the worn badge in her pocket, May Whitfield's legacy from a war that broke barriers, but not spirits, a tangible link to the strength that had shaped her. The Anvil's howling winds faded as her mind slipped back, not to the cave or the SEAL's doubt, but to a mistake that still bled like an open wound. 2 years ago, in a Kandahar dusk, thick with the scent of impending rain, she'd lined up a shot 600 yards clean and calculated the equations aligning perfectly in her head. But the wind turned traitor, twisting her bullet off course with a sudden gust that her mother's formulas hadn't predicted. It missed the target and found her teammate instead. Carter's cry echoed in her ears as he fell, his blood staining the sand in a pattern she could never unsee. His name was a weight she carried, carved into her insecurities, as a woman in a world quick to judge her aim, to question if she belonged in the crosshairs at all. Back in Boston, her grandmother's kitchen had been her refuge, a warm sanctuary amid the city's cold streets. May, a Whitfield soldier who'd endured the dismissals, aimed at women in uniform, taught her to hold a rifle steady and her head higher. Her stories of endurance a shield against doubt. Over a crackling radio playing Ella Fitzgerald's jazz. May's voice cut through the static of life. Trust the wind, Elena. It's a friend if you understand it, if you listen to its secrets instead of fearing its change. Her letter, folded beside the badge, held those words like a prayer, written in ink smudged by time and tears. Elena, barely a teen, then learned to read gusts, like stories her mother's physics lessons, turning air into equations that made sense of chaos. But Carter's death whispered louder. What if she misread the wind again? What if her calculations failed when lives depended on them? Now, staring into the Anvil's dust-choked heart, Elena gripped May's badge, its edges biting her palm like a call to action. Layla's life, the SEAL's survival hung on her next shot, the Triad's shadows mocking her from the screen. The wind wailed, daring her to fail, but May's words echoed, steadying her pulse like a heartbeat from the past. She wasn't just fighting the enemy. She was fighting her own doubts, the ghosts of missed shots and lost comrades. And in the Anvil, doubt was as deadly as any bullet of foe that could end everything before the trigger was pulled. Tension coiled in the air like the Anvil's twisting winds as Rudd straightened his decision final and unyielding. No shooting. Recon only. We pull back, report the intel. That's the order from JSOS. No deviations, no risks. His voice brooked no argument, eyes sweeping the team like a commander tallying losses before they happened. His face a mask of disciplined restraint. The operators shifted, frustration etched in their stances, rifles slung over shoulders, but fingers itching for action, the recon directive feeling like chains in a fight, begging for freedom. Briggs crossed his arms, glancing at Elena with a smirk that masked his own unease. Hear that, logistics girl? Go back to your paperwork. Leave the real work to us. We'll handle the watching while you count beans. A few chuckles broke the silence, low and forced, but Elena stood unmoved, her clipboard, a shield against the barbs. She stepped closer to the drone screen, pointing at the cave's layout with a precision that belied her role. What if we don't need to go in long-range precision shots from the ridge? Winds are predictable if you account for Coriolis elevation. Drop the way the thermals twist, like a serpent in the heat. Her words hung casual yet charged, like suggesting a supply route that could turn the tide. Rudd's brow furrowed, his authority challenged. You're logistics, Whitfield, not a sniper. Stick to your lane. Briggs laughed outright, leaning in with mock curiosity. Yeah, what you gonna calculate their demise with a spreadsheet? Or is that your secret weapon, death by bureaucracy? The team erupted in grins, dismissing her as an outsider, meddling in their domain, the laughter a defense against the fear gnawing at them all. Elena's jaw tightened, but she held back her true skills, veiled years of Black Ops training buried under the observer facade, waiting for the moment to emerge. Then a faint beep pierced her earpiece. Her personal radio separate from the team's freak, a lifeline to shadows deeper than the Anvil. She tilted her head, subtly listening, as the encrypted voice whispered, "Frost activate if needed." Shadow protocol engaged. The message was a ghost from command, hinting at her hidden role. Secret agent embedded for moments like this, a piece in a larger puzzle of classified ops. Her pulse quickened, curiosity sparking in her own mind. Who was watching, and what did they know of the storm brewing? Rudd barked orders, his voice snapping the room back to focus. Move out. Maintain radio checks. Eyes open. No mistakes. The team descended into the Anvil shadows, swallowing them step by step, the valley's embrace growing tighter. But as they vanished into the dust, comms crackled faint at first, then garbled with interference. Echo 1. Static. Losing signal. Elena's hand hovered over her rucksack, the wind rising like a warning, a harbinger of the trap closing around them all. The desert wasn't just a battlefield. It was alive, and it hungered. The Anvil's jagged walls seemed to pulse with malice as the drone operator slammed his fist on the console in frustration. Jammer's back full blackout. The screen flickered, then died, leaving only static where the enemy cave had been a void that swallowed hope. Elena stood rigid on the ridge, her clipboard-forgotten eyes scanning the valley below with an intensity born of hidden purpose. The wind shifted hard from southeast to northwest, kicking up spindrift, swirling dust that stung like needles and warped bullet paths in ways her mother's equations could barely tame, turning the air into an unpredictable enemy. Below, the SEAL team's formation faltered their movements, slowing as if the desert itself was dragging them down. Rudd's voice crackled through the comms, strained and edged with confusion. Echo 1 status. Something's wrong, like a fog in my head. Shadows moved in the valley, but not from enemy fire. The team slowed, rifles dipping shoulders, slumping as if gravity had turned traitor, pulling them towards surrender. A low, droning hum rolled from hidden speakers in the Anvil's cliffs, an eerie, hypnotic pulse that burrowed into the mind, whispering defeat, eroding resolve like acid on steel. Briggs's voice broke through, slurred and distant. Can't. Focus. What is this noise? It's inside me, Rudd barked. Stay sharp, damn it. But his words frayed, lost in the sound's grip, his command fracturing under the invisible assault. Elena's heart pounded a drum against the chaos, her chest tightening with the urgency of the moment. Dust choked the air, blurring the SEALs into ghosts below their forms, wavering like mirages in the heat. The enemy's psychological weapon, some kind of sonic tech, advanced and insidious, was unraveling the team, turning elite warriors into statues, frozen in doubt. She gripped her rucksack, the weight of the hidden Barrett M107, grounding her an anchor in the storm. The wind screamed a taunt to her calculations, daring her to act before it was too late. Rudd's comms cut to static, his last words a garbled plea that echoed her own fears. The Anvil was tightening its jaws, and time was bleeding out fast, each second a step closer to irreversible loss. Elena crouched on the ridge, the Anvil's wind clawing at her face like talons, seeking weakness as she scanned the valley's haze with unyielding eyes. The SEALs' comms were dead, swallowed by the enemy's jammer, their silhouettes frozen below under the hypnotic hum that twisted minds like the dust devils swirling at their feet. Her mind raced, piecing together a plan born from her mother's chalkboard lessons those late nights, where equations danced like fireflies and May's steady hands that had guided her through storms of doubt. She turned to Rudd, who clung to the last thread of command, his eyes wild with frustration and the creeping fog of the hum. I can stop this, she said, her voice cutting through the wind like a blade honed by necessity. 3 shots, precise order intelligence first, to kill the jammer and silence the hum, then strategy to free Layla from her chains, logistics last, to break their spine and scatter the remnants. Call it 3-1-2, calculated, not reckless. Rudd's face hardened his authority, a wall cracking under pressure. From 200 yards in this wind that's shifting like a traitor, you're suicidal, Whitfield, and you'll take us with you. The Coriolis effect, twisted bullets like a spinning wheel, she knew, bending paths across the Anvil's thin air with a malice that demanded respect. But she'd mapped the wind's rhythm gusts, syncing with brief power outages in the enemy cave, flickering their lights like signals from fate itself. It's physics, she said simply, her tone steady amid the howl. Coriolis is like a wheel curving the shot, pulling it left or right depending on the spin. I calculated with formulas my mother taught, factoring elevation, humidity, even the Earth's rotation. It's not guesswork, it's science. Briggs, half dazed from the hum that still lingered in his ears, squinted at her with a mix of awe and suspicion. Where the hell did you learn sniping logistics school or some secret handbook? His tone teetered between mockery and genuine curiosity, the doubt in his voice cracking like the rocks below. Elena's lips twitched, dodging the truth with practiced ease. From books and a lot of practice. Her fingers grazed the rucksack, hiding her Barrett, her secret screaming to break free, the weight a reminder of missions, where math had saved lives. Rudd shook his head, but the silence below pressed like a blade against his throat. No authorization for shots. Recon only. That's the line we don't cross. Elena's gaze locked on the cave where Layla's white robes flickered in the drone's last frame, a beacon of urgency. The wind howled, daring her to defy orders, to step into the void where heroes were forged or forgotten. She'd need to move fast before the Anvil claimed them all, before doubt turned to disaster. A sharp ping shattered the ridge's tense hush, Elena's secure tablet lighting up with urgent intel that cut through the wind like a lifeline. Layla's marked for execution, the message read stark and final, the words flashing like a warning flare. Bait to draw us in deeper. Window closing act now? Or lose her? Or the intel she carries dies with her? Elena's breath caught the revelation hitting like a sandstorm, whipping up memories of losses she couldn't afford to repeat. Layla the informant, whose whispers had saved countless patrols from ambushes, was now a pawn in the Triad's game, her life a ticking clock in the enemy's hands. Rudd's face paled his rigid stance, cracking under the pressure of lives hanging in the balance. Damn it all. If we wait, she dies, and the team stays trapped, the hum breaking them before the bullets do. The mission twisted in an instant, from recon only to kill, plus rescue a high-stakes gamble that turned the Anvil into a board, where one wrong move meant checkmate. Elena met his gaze, her plan no longer a suggestion, but a lifeline thrown into the abyss. 3-1-2. We take the shots free. Her and the chaos turn their trap against them. Briggs, still shaking off the hum's fog that clouded his thoughts, nodded slowly, his sarcasm yielding to survival. It's insane, but it might work if she's as good as she claims. Rudd hesitated, the weight of command pressing down like the mountains above, then growled his approval. Fine. But if it goes south, we pull out. No heroes left behind. As the team prepped with hurried efficiency, Elena rolled up her sleeve, revealing a jagged scar snaking across her forearm, pale against her skin, a relic from an old mission that still haunted her nights. Though from a shot I didn't take fast enough. Winds changed just like now, and it cost a life I can't forget. The revelation hung increasing the mystery around her. Who was this logistics observer with battlefield wounds that spoke of secrets deeper than the Anvil? Briggs's eyes widened, his doubt shifting to intrigue. What ops were you? In some ghost unit? Elena's smile was faint, evasive, a veil over classified shadows. Classified. But I've learned from mistakes, and this won't be one. With Rudd's nod, Elena shouldered her rucksack, the Barrett's weight familiar like an old ally. She climbed alone to the sniper perch. Rocks biting her palms with sharp reminders of vulnerability. The Anvil's winds howling like a dire warning, fierce, unrelenting, as if the desert itself sensed the storm she was about to unleash, a reckoning born of precision and purpose. Below the team, waited in shadows, their fate in her hands. The first shot loomed a point of no return. Elena settled into the sniper perch, the Anvil's jagged ridge biting into her knees like a reminder of the ground's unforgiving nature. The wind screamed a relentless howl that carried dust and the faint, lingering hum of the enemy's speakers, testing her resolve with every gust. She closed her eyes, drawing a deep breath, 4 seconds in hold for 7, exhale for 8. The 4-7-8 rhythm slowed her heart, each beat a steady drum against the chaos, below a technique her mother had taught to conquer. Fear with logic. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Control the math, control the shot. Let numbers be your anchor when emotions storm. Briggs's voice crackled through Elena's earpiece, fighting the wind's interference, with an urgency that betrayed his growing trust. Winds at ground level northwest, 12 knots and holding. Higher up, it's shifting 15 degrees off, maybe more, with gusts that could pull a bullet wide. His usual sarcasm was gone, replaced by focus, as if he sensed the stakes and her hidden depths. Elena adjusted her scope fingers steady, despite the tremble of adrenaline calculating spindrift and Coriolis in her head. Numbers dancing like her mother's chalk on a Boston blackboard, turning chaos into predictability. Rudd's voice cut in sharp and final, a command laced with the weight of lives. Whitfield, if this fails, we withdraw. No second chances, get it right, or we all pay. His words were a blade, but Elena's focus didn't waver. She pictured Layla's white robes in the cave, the SEAL's slumped forms below, and May's badge heavy in her pocket, its presence a silent encouragement from generations past. The wind howled louder, daring her to falter, but she exhaled one last time, her pulse a whisper. The first shot was hers to take or lose everything in the desert's merciless embrace. The Anvil's wind roared like a living beast, hurling dust across Elena's perch as she locked her scope on the enemy cave, her world narrowing to the crosshair's deadly promise. The power in the valley flickered a brief pulse of darkness, her window a fleeting chance in the storm. The intelligence leader stood in the cave's mouth, radio in hand, directing the jammer that choked the SEAL's comms and fed the hypnotic hum. Elena's finger hovered over the trigger, her breath steady from the 4-7-8 count, each exhale pushing back the doubt. But as she exhaled, a gust slammed her scope, fogging the lens with fine sand that blurred the line between hit and miss. Her heart lurched, vision blurred the shot, teetering on ruin. The Anvil seeming to mock her with its chaos. Calculations spun in her mind, 200 yards of unforgiving air. Coriolis bending the bullet left like an invisible hand, spindrift, twisting it further into unpredictability. No time to wipe the lens, no room for error. She shut her eyes for a split second, May's voice cutting through the roar. Trust the wind. It's your friend, if you listen close enough. Her grandmother's instinct honed in. Babuawurtu's chaos amid bombs and bias surged through her veins. Elena adjusted the scope a fraction, not by math alone, but by feel, muscle memory, from 1,000 shots fired in Boston's backlots, where failure taught more than success. She squeezed the trigger, the recoil, a jolt that echoed her resolve. The bullet sliced through the howling wind, defying the dust, and doubt punching through the intelligence leader's chest with lethal precision. He crumpled radio, clattering to the stone like a broken chain. The jammer's hum died, replaced by a faint crackle in her earpiece. Comms were back, the hypnotic spell fracturing. Rudd's voice burst through ragged but alert. Echo 1, we're online. What the hell just happened? Who fired Elena didn't answer her scope, already shifting to the next target, her breath steadying for the fight ahead. The Anvil's pulse quickened, but one shot down meant the fight was hers, to shape a step closer to turning the tide. Her scope locked onto the strategist, his silhouette sharp against the cave's flickering light, a predator cornered in his own lair. Maps lay strewn before him, his finger tracing routes to tighten the Anvil's deadly grip, each line a plan for more bloodshed. The power blinked again, a split-second blackout her moment, a narrow window in the storm's fury. Her finger curled on the trigger, the Barrett steady her breath a ghost after the 4-7-8 rhythm that anchored her amid the chaos. But then Layla lunged forward, her white robes flaring like a flag of desperation, as she grabbed a wounded guard, dragging him across the line of fire with a strength born of survival. Elena's pulse spiked. She yanked her finger back, aborting the shot in 0.3 seconds, heart hammering against her ribs like a caged storm. Layla was no pawn. She was risking herself to save another, even an enemy. Her actions, a silent cry for humanity in the midst of war. The moral weight pressed down one bullet could end the strategist, but kill their informant, snuffing out a light that had guided so many through the darkness. Elena waited scope, trembling in the wind, as Layla pulled the man clear, her robes vanishing behind a crate, like a ghost slipping free. The wind chose that moment to betray her, shifting hard from northwest to a chaotic swirl, spiking spindrift and throwing her calculations into disarray, the air itself conspiring against her. No time to recalculate. Coriolis was a wild card now, pulling the shot into uncertainty. May's words flashed through Elena's mind. Feel the wind. It's your friend if you listen close enough. She nudged the scope, a hair-trusting instinct over math, her grandmother's legacy steadying her hand. The trigger snapped the recoil, a jolt of defiance. The bullet tore through the turbulent air, defying the gusts, punching into the strategist's chest as he turned in alarm. He collapsed, maps fluttering like fallen flags, chaos erupting in the cave. Layla froze for a heartbeat, then bolted for the cave's edge, free in the turmoil she had helped create. Rudd's voice crackled in Elena's earpiece, urgent and alive. Second target down. She's out. Layla's moving. The Anvil's pulse roared louder, the valley awakening with gunfire, but the board was shifting, the enemy's grip loosening. One more shot to end it, or lose everything in the desert's unforgiving embrace. The cave's flickering light cast jagged shadows as the logistics leader sprinted for the door crates of munitions, abandoned behind him in a frantic bid for escape. Elena's scope tracked his desperate run, her finger poised on the Barrett's trigger, the weight of the final shot pressing like the mountains above. The Anvil's wind screamed a relentless howl that churned dust and defiance, testing her limits, with every gust that threatened to pull her aim astray. She steadied her breath, locking in the shot, 200 yards of treacherous air, the final piece of her 3-1-2 plan to break the enemy's spine and shatter their hold on the valley. But then the speakers hidden in the cliffs erupted, blasting a deeper, more vicious hypnotic hum that clawed at the edges of her mind. The sound invaded like a poison, her vision blurring at the edges, colors bleeding together, the scope wavering like a mirage in the heat, the hum whispering doubts that echoed her past failures. Her pulse spiked, threatening to unravel her focus. The logistics leader, mere steps from escape, the mission teetering on the brink of collapse. Her mother's voice cut through the fog, sharp from years of chalkboard lessons, amid Boston storms, calculation over emotion, Elena. Numbers don't lie, they cut through the noise. She gripped May's badge in her pocket, grounding herself in the legacy of women who had faced worse, and forced her eyes to focus, pushing the hum back like a wave receding. The wind shifted again, erratic and vicious, spiking spindrift to throw her shot wide the air, alive with betrayal. No time for new math. She adjusted the scope a fraction, a quarter-mil nudge guided by the equations etched in her bones, her mother's precision blending with May's instinct. The trigger snapped the recoil, a surge of triumph. The bullet sliced through the chaos, defying the hum and gusts, punching through the leader's back just as he reached the door. He collapsed a final barrier, broken the cave, descending into silence. The speakers fell silent, their hum choked out forever. Rudd's voice burst through the comms, raw with relief and awe. "Third down. We're clear, the hum's gone." Elena exhaled, vision clearing as the weight lifted, but the Anvil's pulse still thrummed, warning of the chaos yet to unfold. The valley was awakening, and the fight was far from over. The Anvil erupted as alarms shrieked from the enemy cave, a piercing wail that shattered the silence like glass under boot. The hypnotic hum was gone, its spell broken, and the SEAL team snapped awake, rifles rising as instincts kicked in with a ferocity born of survival. Rudd's voice roared through the comms, a command that cut through the din. Echo 1 engage. Move to rally point, cover fire, and push gunfire cracked below muzzle flashes lighting the valley like broken stars in a night sky. The team unleashing hell on the disoriented enemy. Elena slung the Barrett over her shoulder, her perch exposed, as the wind whipped dust into a blinding shroud that stung her eyes and skin. She scrambled down the ridge rocks, slicing her palms with sharp reminders of vulnerability. Each step a race against the growing storm of retaliation. When Briggs's voice broke through the comms, pained and urgent, her heart sank. "I'm hit. Ankle's gone, can't run." A stray bullet had grazed his leg, twisting it in the dirt, blood soaking the ground like a dark omen. Without hesitation, Elena hooked his arm over her shoulder, half carrying him with a strength fueled by adrenaline and resolve, her frame defying the burden. "Move, Briggs, or we're both done. Lean on me." Rudd ahead in the fray, ripped smoke mines from his vest, hurling them to cloak their retreat with thick gray clouds that billowed like ghosts rising from the earth. The smoke choked the valley, obscuring their path, but red laser beams sliced through the haze enemy scopes, hunting with deadly precision. One grazed Elena's cheek, burning like fire, a near miss that seared her focus sharper. "Down," she hissed, pulling Briggs flat against the rocky ground, their breaths ragged in the stifling air. They held their breath for 10 agonizing seconds, lasers dancing inches above like predators, sniffing for weakness, the seconds stretching into eternity. The beams passed a miracle in the madness, and they bolted for a narrow ravine. Ravine 9, their escape route carved by ancient floods. Gunfire chased them, bullets pinging off rocks like angry hornets. The enemy's shouts growing louder, a tide of pursuit closing fast. Rudd led the sprint, shouting encouragements that cut through the roar. "Keep moving, don't look back." Elena's legs burned, Briggs's weight dragging like an anchor, but she pushed on May's badge, thumping against her chest like a heartbeat from the past urging her forward. They slipped into the ravine, safe for now, but behind them, the enemy's shouts echoed the pursuit, relentless closing, fast like the jaws of the Anvil itself. 3 months later, the Anvil lay quiet, its jagged cliffs no longer a graveyard for American lives, the once menacing valley transformed into a silent testament to change. The wind carried only dust, not the echoes of death or the cries of the fallen. The shadows that had claimed so many now harbored nothing but memories. The enemy network gutted by the loss of its triad. Intelligence, strategy, logistics had crumbled into scattered remnants, their operations fracturing like dry earth underfoot. No more IEDs lined the trails waiting to explode. No more ambushes bled out in the shadows, claiming lives in sudden violence. Fob Grey Rock buzzed with cautious relief, soldiers moving without the weight of dread that had hung over every patrol, their steps lighter on ground, no longer soaked in fear. But the official report told a different story, buried under layers of secrecy and red tape that hid the truth from all but the initiated. Classified documents locked behind 3 signatures and codes that changed with the moons claimed a bloodless victory mission success. No shots fired officially. The truth of that day, Elena's 3 bullets, each defying wind and doubt, each a strike against the impossible, vanished into a Black Ops vault, reduced to a project number that didn't exist on any chart, a ghost in the machine of military bureaucracy. Her name didn't appear in dispatches, her actions erased from the record like footprints in shifting sand. Yet whispers spread among the base rumors of a logistics observer who'd rewritten the rules of survival, who had turned the tide when all seemed lost. The desert kept her secret, but the echoes of her shots lingered, a silent promise that some victories reshape the world without a sound. Their impact felt long after the storm has passed. Back at Subscrbe, the Tactical Operations Center was quiet, the maps of the Anvil now marked with hope instead of loss. The red X's faded like old wounds healing. Commander Rudd stood before Elena, his weathered hand holding a worn SEAL badge, its trident glinting faintly under the fluorescent light that cast long shadows across the room. From logistics to Frost, he said, voice low and gravelly, a rare crack of respect, breaking his rigid tone, the words carrying the weight of battles shared. You didn't just save us. You rewrote the fight, turned the impossible into reality. He pressed the badge into her palm, his grip lingering, a soldier's acknowledgement, unspoken but heavy with gratitude. Briggs, leaning on a crutch, his ankle still bound, spoke with a voice stripped of sarcasm, raw with truth. You carried me out of Ravine 9, Whitfield. Without you, I'd be dust in that canyon. His head dipped in gratitude, eyes locking with hers in a silent acknowledgement of a bond forged in fire. Elena tightened her grip on the SEAL badge, her scar catching the light like a medal of its own. Her voice was steady but quiet, carved from steel and loss. I'm no stranger to shadows. CIA black ops missions that never make the record, where failure isn't an option. My grandmother May did the same in '44, pulling her squad from a Nazi ambush in chaos and prejudice. She taught me legacy isn't in medals, it's in the lives you save. The room fell still. They weren't just looking at a soldier, they were seeing a lineage of unseen warriors stretching back through generations who had carried burdens in silence. Commander Rudd gave the faintest nod of respect. Briggs exhaled, shaking his head. Damn. You're a ghost, Whitfield, a legend we never saw coming. Days later, in her quarters at Subscrbe, Elena opened a plain envelope sealed with a code. Inside was a photo of a young olive tree clinging to the barren rock roots, defiant in soil scarred by war. A note written in careful script pierced her heart more than any bullet could. The wind brings heroes. Thank you, Frost. Layla. Her hands trembled as she pulled out May's old letter, worn soft with years of touch. She folded it into a fragile paper bird, each crease a memory. Boston nights, the crackle of a jazz radio. May's voice steady as she whispered, shoot not for glory, but so others may live. On her table lay 3 tokens, the SEAL badge, the olive tree photo, and the paper bird. Together, they wove a truth. Heroes don't need names, only moments where they dare to change everything. Outside, the wind across the Anvil had changed. It no longer screamed with death, but whispered with peace. And in that whisper, Elena wasn't just a ghost. She was a flame carried forward by those she saved. This isn't a tale about a sniper's bullet. It's about legacy sacrifice and the invisible heroes who rewrite fate while the world looks away. The brilliance of this ending lies in how it guides the audience, from suffocating tension to the release of survival, to the tearful swell of gratitude. It's a rhythm that leaves viewers both breathless and deeply moved. If Elena Whitfield's story touched you, tap like to honor her legacy, comment to share your own story of unseen courage, and subscribe for more tales of unsung heroes. Because somewhere out there, someone you know, or maybe even you, might be a Frost in silence waiting for their moment.